Federal Bureau of Investigation. Unclassified. For official use only. Interagency Memorandum. Subject. Incident Report, Site 7. Former Chernaya 3 Nuclear Complex. Gomel Oblast. Belarus SSR. Dimensional distortion event and associated casualties. Date, April 11, 1994. From Special Agent Raymond H. Laughlin, Department of Esoteric Threat Assessment, DETA, FBI. To Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Carbon copy, DOE, DOD, CIA, NSA, MJ-12. Restricted eyes only. Executive Summary. On March 27, 1994, a joint American-Belarusian research team operating under the International Nuclear Remediation Accord reported an unsanctioned breach of quarantine protocols at the decommissioned Chernaya 3 nuclear power facility, located approximately 80 kilometers northwest of Gomel. The resulting event, designated DD-113B, Veil Shear, resulted in 5 confirmed fatalities, 12 personnel listed MIA, and significant topological and temporal anomalies confined to Reactor Hall B. Preliminary analysis suggests interdimensional interference consistent with Shambler-class entities. Reference: Esoteric Manifestations Catalog, Rev 3-1. Entities described as tall, shifting bipedal forms exhibiting non-Euclidean movement and extreme spatial phase instability. Encounter considered level red. Uncontainable threat, immediate termination authorized. Incident chronology. March 25, 1994. 10:43 Mountain Standard Time. Dr. Nadia Korolenko, Team Lead, reports anomalous gamma readings emanating from beneath the reactor floor, far exceeding any known decay profiles. Readings exhibit rhythmic patterns, possibly indicative of an intentional signal or pulse. March 26, 1994. 02:17 Mountain Standard Time. Unauthorized excavation beneath the containment substructure reveals a secondary chamber not listed in original Soviet schematics. Inside, a metal door inscribed with indecipherable glyphs. Door is cold to the touch, despite ambient temperature of 48 degrees Celsius. March 26, 1994, 14:03 MST. Door opened via plasma torch. Audio logs from this period exhibit sustained low-frequency murmuring, 22 to 24 Hz, consistent with infrasound capable of inducing anxiety, hallucinations, and disorientation. March 26, 1994, 14:16 MST. Visual contact lost with Excavation Team A, 6 personnel. Surveillance feed exhibits digital corruption and looping time signatures. See Appendix C. March 26, 1994, 14:20 MST. Shambler-class entity observed on infrared before complete camera failure. Entity's structure described as constantly reforming angles that shouldn't touch. Per surviving witness Lieutenant K. Holmes. Holmes removed from sight, exhibiting acute visual cortex inflammation and speaking in reversed Belarusian dialects. March 27, 1994, 03:44 MST. Reactor Hall B expands internally by approximately 230 meters, violating known spatial boundaries. Field team reports descending stairs that spiraled outward and inward simultaneously. Radio contact becomes incoherent, degraded by cross-layer interference. March 27, 1994, 05:02 MST. Lieutenant Holmes, now catatonic, speaks a final phrase in Aklo before spontaneous cranial implosion. See autopsy report number 94-7A. Phrase translated roughly as, they slipped through where atoms dream. March 28, 1994, 1200 hours MST. Facility resealed. Entity activity ceases. Residual spatial anomalies persist, primarily looping hallways, gravitational distortions, and sound delays exceeding 37 seconds. Addendum. Notable artifacts collected. Fragmented lead tablet with 19 concentric glyphs. Non-human origin, matching carvings from Tunguska archive. Audio recording of third voice on open channel. Does not match any team member. Analyzed as tritonal resonance across dimensional phase. Sample of black ichor with fluctuating radioactive signature. Half-life inconsistent. Appears to oscillate temporally. Conclusion and recommendations. Janaya 3 is to be declared a permanent black site. No further excavations authorized. Recommend Class 7 dimensional quarantine under international law. Esoteric Containment Charter, 1981. All surviving personnel subject to indefinite psychiatric evaluation and potential memory attenuation procedures. Protocol Nemosine 4. The existence of Shambler-class entities and their capacity for translocation via nuclear decay vectors suggests a systematic vulnerability in decommissioned Cold War facilities globally. Additional investigation recommended at similar Soviet-era sites with abnormal radiation decay patterns. End of report. Attachments. Appendix A. Site diagrams. Pre- and post-expansion. Appendix B. Audio spectrograms from Reactor Hall B. Appendix C. Surveillance video frame anomalies. Appendix D. Psychological assessments. Survivors. Appendix E. Glyph translations. Preliminary. Classification level. Top secret. Code black. Handling caveat. Eyes only. DETA MJ12 DOE. The space between atoms is not empty. We merely fail to see what waits. Final note found in Dr. Korolenko's logbook, written in her own blood. Handwriting confirmed. Federal Bureau of Investigation, unclassified for official use only. Interagency Memorandum, continuation. Subject. Incident Report, Site 7, former Chernaya 3 Nuclear Complex, Gomel Oblast, Belarus SSR, Dimensional Distortion Event and associated casualties. Date, April 11, 1994, from Special Agent Raymond H. Laughlin, DETA, FBI, to Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation. CC, DOE, DOD, CIA, NSA, MJ12. Addendum 1. Psychological anomalies and cognitive deterioration. Survivors exhibit cognitive fracturing consistent with sustained exposure to high-order ontological interference. Subject's report. Time reversal. Non-linear identity perception. And intrusive memories, not their own. Lieutenant Dmitry Azanov stated, before collapsing into a fetal position, "I remembered being born again inside the reactor, but it wasn't me. It was something wearing my name. I've never seen stars like those before. Dr. Ingrid Bellamy, DOE observer, attempted suicide by self-evisceration on March 30th, claiming she had to let the others out. Autopsy reports presence of non-biological fibers woven around her abdominal cavity, composed of carbon isotope 666. Theoretical until now. All clocks recovered from Site 7 are frozen at 11:44:13, though they continue ticking audibly. Recordings confirm the second hand rotates counterclockwise when unobserved, resuming normal function when under surveillance. Personnel within 50 meters of Reactor Hall B report the following consistent hallucinations. A long corridor lined with countless versions of themselves, all turning to look at the observer simultaneously. Disembodied limbs protruding from walls and ceilings, constantly rearranging with a wet, insectile clicking. An oppressive voice in the head, described as the absence of language, trying to speak. Addendum 2. Entity description. Shambler class behavioral anomalies. While traditionally understood as interstitial apex predators, Shambler manifestations at Chernaya 3 demonstrate a conscious manipulation of spatial logic. Witnesses describe the entities folding and wearing rooms like garments, occupying simultaneous locations across dimensions. Field Operative V. Doutrick, DOJ Blackwatch, engaged one such entity with conventional armament. Doutrick's body was recovered upside down, fused into the floor with a look of serene ecstasy on his face. Brain matter analysis shows honeycomb-like structuring, suggesting his consciousness had been partitioned for use. Jesus. Thermal imaging reveals entities are colder than background vacuum, suggesting anti-entropic physiology. One frame from Surveillance Drone 3A captured a Shambler holding what appeared to be a flayed humanoid composed entirely of mirrors, each reflecting an impossible geometry. Addendum 3. Structural and dimensional warping. On March 29 at 0206 MST, a space-time shear occurred on Sublevel 4, described by survivors as a rippling horizon of glass. Personnel caught in proximity were sliced into thousands of overlapping selves, visible only under polarized light. A subsequent drone mapping expedition into the now expanded sublevel, designated Zone Delta, yielded footage of an infinite stairwell composed of teeth and rusted Soviet signage. Each step taken was echoed 7 seconds in the past, while screams from ahead matched those of the operators, though they had yet to scream. The stairwell terminates in a pit. Inside, a floating cruciform structure composed of reactor fuel rods and limbs. It emits low-level radiation with a modulation that, when decoded via Fourier transform, resembles a phonetic representation of the name Yog-Sothoth. Addendum 4. Breach Risk Assessment. On April 3, spatial readings indicated transdimensional bleed exceeding 83 meters beyond quarantine perimeter. Local wildlife, birds, rodents now exhibit non-Newtonian locomotion, e.g. flight without wing movement or vanishing into two-dimensional shadows. 3 nearby villagers taken for observation have developed identical lesions in the shape of impossible polygons and can no longer perceive written text. They claim all letters now watch them back. The most alarming incident occurred on 0313 MST on April 5, when DETA Agent Crawley, Security Post Alpha, spontaneously spoke a dead pre-human dialect, known only from fragmentary tablets found at Mohenjo-Daro. He stated, "The doors are not symbols, they are mouths. And they remember us." Agent Crawley then inverted physically, folding himself like origami, leaving behind a slick of cryogenic ichor and a note written in his own handwriting. "We are remembered. We are remembered." Final recommendation. Immediate atmospheric vitrification of Site 7 is authorized. Protocol Thor's Lantern, orbital kinetic strike, followed by salt-bonded napalm sweep. There is no recovery option. Risk of cross-dimensional metastasis is unacceptably high. Consider Site 7 an ongoing dimensional lesion, not a facility. Avoid all references in media. Apply mimetic blackout grid, MBG-12, across all communications within 200-kilometer radius. All documentation transferred to Vault D9, Raven Rock. Entities cataloged under Omega-class threats. Watch protocols for similar decay-related awakenings in Pripyat, Mayak, and Savannah River Site. We did not breach the barrier. We answered a knock. And it was not meant for us. End of addendum. Classification, top secret, code black. Handling caveat, terminalize only, DETA MJ-12. There is no geometry in dreams. That's how you know it's real. Final entry from reactor technician Pavel Vostrikov's log, found etched inside his chest cavity. Federal Bureau of Investigation, unclassified, for official use only. Interagency Memorandum, Continuation 2. Subject, Incident Report Site 7, former Chernaya 3 Nuclear Complex, Gomel Oblast, Belarus SSR, Dimensional Distortion Event and associated casualties. Date, April 11, 1994. From Special Agent Raymond H. Laughlin, DETA, FBI, to Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation, CCDOE, DOD, CIA, NSA, MJ-12. Addendum 5. Deep Penetration Observation. Zone Delta Interior Analysis. At 0400 hours Mountain Standard Time on April 7, DETA authorized exploration drone Seraph-09 breached a second anomaly bloom within Zone Delta. The surrounding area, henceforth designated the inversion field, no longer conforms to recognized three-dimensional topologies. Seraph-09 transmitted its final feed for 3 minutes 23 seconds, before transmission terminated with a sound interpreted by AI as a reversed infant's cry, accompanied by the sound of wet chewing. Prior to loss, the drone recorded a cathedral of bone and coolant tubing, seemingly growing from within the walls. Scores of suspended bodies, frozen mid-scream, hung on strands of glistening matter resembling umbilical cords woven from hair and static electricity. A mirror-like fluid running upward along the ceiling. Within its surface, scenes of earth, but twisted. Rivers running black, cities aflame, and a sky filled with colossal Shambler-like silhouettes, some with limbs extending into the clouds, some partially submerged in thought itself. Seraph's thermographic logs show a temperature drop of 274 degrees Celsius, below absolute zero, indicating the presence of reverse entropy vectors originating from the Shambler horde. Addendum 6, Shambler Behavior and Escalation. Shambler entities continue to multiply within Zone Delta. However, they appear evolutionary, adapting based on observer psychology. Survivors now describe variants not seen in any prior cataloging. 1. The Surgeon. A Shambler that moves in surgical increments, rearranging its own bones and the bones of others mid-movement. Witnessed forcibly opening a researcher's mouth and inserting a second, fully grown, screaming head. The Choir. A swarm of miniature Shamblers fused into a lattice, chanting hymns in tones that infect the cochlear nerves. Victims begin humming until their throats rupture, and insects shaped like letters emerge. Excuse me. 3. The Archivist. Stationary, bloated, covered in eyes, each depicting a different universe's ending. Appears to record passers-by, inscribing etchings into their organs that match cuneiform from Sumerian tombs never unearthed. Field Agent Karimi went missing for 72 hours inside Zone Delta. He reappeared in the observation chamber on April 8, encased in glass. No point of entry detected. Inside his skull, a third hemisphere consisting entirely of shrinking recursive teeth. He spoke clearly in 27 languages simultaneously. We were never meant to see the code that stitches thought to flesh. You've opened the hatchling, and the yoke is infinite. He exploded moments later in a cloud of black feathers, and a single left hand still clutching his service pistol. Addendum 7, Chronospatial Contamination. At 0621 MST on April 9, time ceased within a 12-meter radius of the core containment chamber. Agents entering the zone reported their own voices responding before they spoke. Memories of missions they had not yet undertaken. Hallucinations of their own birth and death, occurring concurrently. Agent Vickers attempted to leave the zone but collapsed, uttering, "There are too many of me. Some want to stay. Some already did." Recovered GoPro footage from his body cam, now designated Artifact V13, shows his perspective splitting into quadrants, each depicting a different moment in time. In one, he walks calmly. In another, he crawls and screams as hands made of flame drag him into a wall that no longer exists in this dimension. The camera continues recording despite being completely melted. Addendum 8, Final Entity Classification, Prime Shambler Manifestation. At 0303 MST on April 10, the event horizon ruptured in the heart of Reactor Hole B. An entity of unprecedented scale and existential gravity emerged. Designation, Prime Shambler. It does not move. It does not speak. It is still Yet observers report it being in multiple positions at once, like a thought held in parallel by countless minds. Features include a body composed of an organ that resembles a reactor core, pulsing with negative light. Faces, thousands, pressing outward from its flesh. Some screaming in reverse, some reciting passages from lost books. For example, the Salino fragments. Tendrils of calcified sorrow which pull nearby objects into non-being, leaving behind perfect voids, black holes the size of teacups. Dr. Korolenko, confirmed deceased March 27, reappeared standing beside the Prime. She wore her own flayed skin as a robe and spoke in choral multitudes. You were warned in the dreams of the atom. We fed the sun to the engine and called it progress, but fire has always belonged to the gods beneath. She then split vertically and vanished. Final directive. Containment terminated. Containment is no longer viable. Reality at Site 7 is demonstrably compromised. Intradimensional harmonics indicate leakage into adjacent realities, including baseline consensus Earth. As of 0444 Mountain Standard Time, April 11, gamma radiation from Site 7 has begun to encode symbols readable only to those who've dreamt of them. Personnel with repeated exposure to site data exhibit shared hallucinations of a door with no hinges, opening inwardly toward the self. Thor's lantern kinetic strike aborted. The Prime Shambler appears to have absorbed predictive calculations of the impact and now exudes immunity to probability. Recommend full interdimensional cordon under Protocol Thanatos Omega. World governments advised to initiate Hephaestus contingency, technological regression, and mimetic redaction. This report is the final transmission from within DETA. Further contact should be assumed. Contaminated. You do not kill the dream. You awake in another. Unknown whisper intercepted across all secure frequencies. April 11, 0446, Mountain Standard Time. Classification level, non-linear temporal lock, Omega Black. Handling caveat. Existence compromised. Terminate report chain. We gazed into the reactor to find fuel. Instead, we found the eye of the sleeper. And it is still waking. Inscription found on the ceiling of Observation Room Delta, written in a loop using no ink. The message continues to shift position when unobserved. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Top secret. Eyes only. Final transmission. Interagency memorandum. Terminal addendum. Subject. Final containment status. Site 7. Former Chernaya 3 nuclear complex. Gomel Oblast, Belarus SSR, Class Omega Reality Breach. Date, April 13, 1994. From Redacted, Acting Director, Department of Esoteric Threat Assessment, DETA, FBI. To Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Carbon copy President's Science Advisory Committee, MJ-12, NATO Black Book. Addendum 9, New Entity Designation, Albino Vorators. Shambler Class, Apex Variant. At 02:39 Mountain Standard Time on April 12, deep substructure scanners registered the arrival of a new class of Shambler entities, appearing via spontaneous rupture events along mimetic fault lines previously dormant since the breach. These entities do not conform to prior spatial logic models, and are believed to originate from a non-causally tethered region of hyperreality, designated the Pale Womb in recovered texts. Entities are classified as albino vorators, Latin root vorare, to devour. 8 to 10 feet tall, bipedal, but move with quadrupedal bursts when agitated. Skin, translucent alabaster, with pulsing blue-green veins that refract light in impossible geometries. No eyes. Entire facial region is replaced by a vertical gaping maw, lined with concentric rings of teeth that do not bite but unravel matter into strands of memory and time. Emissions of infrasound detected from these maws cause hemorrhaging in temporal lobe and spontaneous past life recollection in personnel. Entities phase in and out of visible reality, ripping through air like wet cloth, leaving behind scars in space that do not close. Witnesses describe the sensation of being watched through their future deaths, followed by the sound of children sobbing in reverse. One survivor, Agent Corina Vale, repeatedly screamed, "They're not walking. They're being walked. Someone is wearing them like skin." Autopsy of Agent Vale revealed secondary lungs forming in her thighs, and a pupil growing in her stomach, both still active and blinking post-mortem. Addendum 10, Spatial Disintegration and Total Collapse. At 04:44 Mountain Standard Time, April 12, the reactor core ceased all measurable atomic behavior. Instruments registered complete cessation of quantum fluctuation, a physical impossibility under known physics. The core is now a static zone. Any object entering it becomes an idea of itself, intangible and untouchable, visible only in dream states reported by unrelated subjects worldwide. Zone Delta has expanded exponentially, and now includes Reactor Hall B, Quarantine Tunnels, Northern Medical Wing, 3 floors that do not exist on original blueprints, labeled Apex, Omega, and Threshold by automatic signage that appeared without installation. Recovered footage shows albino vorators tearing holes in the corridors, each hole revealing different versions of Site-7, in which staff worship, flee, or merge with the entities. One variant shows no Earth beyond the reactor, only a vast, colorless sea, and the silhouette of a monolithic creature that waves once every 6 seconds, causing earthquakes in our reality. Addendum 11, Final Communications Log. At 06:06 Mountain Standard Time on April 12, The last surviving communications officer at Post Vega transmitted the following message before being cut off. We see them, even when we don't. They're carving their own room in our minds. We are the map now. They're walking through us. Silence followed for 2 minutes. Then the radio broadcast resumed autonomously, broadcasting only a single tone, identified as the precise frequency of fetal human brainwaves at 22 weeks gestation, modulated into Morse code that translates to, "We dreamt of fire. We woke in teeth." Addendum 12. Final containment and quarantine measures. As of 08:33 Mountain Standard Time, April 12, Site 7 has been officially declared a sink zone. No physical entry or line of sight allowed. All atmospheric, electromagnetic, and mimetic egress vectors compromised. Per Emergency Directive MJ12 Omega 7, Site 7 is to be encased in 6 kilometers of neutron-cored concrete, removed from all digital and physical cartography, surrounded by a 100-mile zone of obfuscation, reinforced by Class 4 reality stabilizers. Memory redaction protocols authorized for all surviving witnesses and attached staff. Quarantine zone officially renamed Lake Vostrikov, listed as an irradiated exclusion zone, resulting from an experimental meltdown. All physical files, footage, and recovered objects related to Site 7 are to be transferred to Vault 13C, Antarctica Black Site, SCP Lockstock Protocol, and sealed under temporal lock until 2144. Public explanation: localized ecological collapse due to chemical weapon disposal during Soviet era. No civilian access permitted. Trespassers subject to immediate containment or liquidation. Final statement. Site 7 is no longer a place. It is an idea that thinks, growing within our conceptual reality like a tumor in the collective unconscious. The albino vorators continue to roam the non-places, seeking new seams in thought and faith through which to push. Dream patterns across all NATO personnel have begun to sync. Sleep labs now reporting shared nightmares with identical topographies. It is not spreading. It has already arrived. This report terminates here. No further observation is sanctioned. Their mouths are not for eating. They are for remembering what came before creation. Graffiti scrawled on the inside of the containment door by a man who never entered the facility. This file is classified Omega Black, Vanta Black Code 44. Do not duplicate. Do not read without Level 9 override. Do not think about it too long. End of report.